Welcome back. It's so good to be back together after a different type of summer, and we're gathering back together again for worship. Um, Although, if you're watching this, it means you probably missed our reunion service last Sunday, where we shared some of our experiences and how God has worked in us and in our families, both blessings and challenges over this past summer. We're really glad to be back from our time in the States. It was a wonderful few weeks back in the United States. It was good for us, Stacy and I, to see family and to be together with our friends and to connect with churches who support our ministry. But when I reflect on our time in the States, part of it felt kind of strange, right? People would often welcome us by saying, "Welcome home." And yet it didn't feel quite right to hear that, right? Because the United States really isn't our home anymore. Our son and daughter-in-law were wonderful hosts, but we were always guests in someone else's home while we were there. We drove past the house that was our home for the past 18 years, and it's changed. They've made some new changes to that house, and rightfully so. It's theirs, but it's not our home anymore. I got to preach at Iron Rest Church, and it was terrific to be back at the church I served for so many years, but a lot has changed over the past 3 years, and rightfully so. And the people I reconnected with, we've all changed, right? We've all grown older. So towards the end of our time, we were very eager to come back here to Spain. And yet at the same time, coming back here and having people say to us, "Welcome home," it didn't feel completely right either, right? We're still residents here. We aren't citizens of this country, and we're still getting used to everything that's different about it. We're getting used to Celsius instead of Fahrenheit, and liters instead of gallons, and kilometers instead of miles, and Spanish instead of English. In my good moments, I feel like I have two homes, one here in Spain, one in the United States. In my not so good moments, I feel like I don't have any homes, that I don't belong anywhere. Now, I'm guessing many of you who have moved from one country to another have experienced that same feeling. Does it feel familiar to you? That feeling made me think about Hebrews chapter 11, which talks about feeling like foreigners and strangers, right? And it says that that's a feeling that all of us as Jesus followers should have in our lives, even when we feel completely at home in the place where we are living. We should still have times and places where we feel like we do not belong because we are different from people around us. Right? Hebrews chapter 11 is a familiar chapter to many of us. It's the chapter that lists the heroes of the faith, people throughout biblical history who did bold things in obedience to God's call. Take a moment. Remember what some of them did. In the list, you'll find Noah, who built an ark when there was no rain in sight at God's direction. You'll find Abraham, who just when he had settled in and had made a home for himself, God said to him, "Get up and move, and I'm not going to tell you where you're going to go." And he picked up and went. And then later on, when he said, "I want you to take your only son and sacrifice him to me," he did it until God told him to stop at the last moment. But he was willing to be obedient to God no matter what. You'll find Moses, who was living a quiet, peaceful life. And when God told him to go lead the nation of Israel out of slavery, he went and confronted Pharaoh and did just that. Remember Rahab? Rahab, who was a resident of Jericho. And when Israel sent spies into Jericho, to see how they could defeat them. It's Rahab who hid those spies and kept them safe. You'll find Gideon the judge, who raised an army of tens of thousands of people to go do battle against the Midianites. And God said, how about we go into battle with just 300 instead of tens of thousands? And Gideon obeyed. He sent most of his army home and went into battle with just 300. Now, none of these heroes of the faith did what was expected. And think about if you were a friend of theirs, what would you think about their choices? You would think they were strange. It doesn't make any logical sense, does it? They did not fit in with this world around them and the ways that this world made decisions and the ways that this world behaved. And verses 13 through 16 tell us why they did what they did. And these verses help teach us how you and I can also be heroes of the faith. Listen to this. It says, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had the opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Now, don't miss verse 13 there. Verse 13 says that they admitted that they were foreigners and strangers on this earth, that they didn't feel completely at home anywhere. Let's think about that for a few moments. They were strangers on earth. They were strange, right? They didn't fit into the ways of this world, right? A life of comfort and ease as the world defines it was not their life goal. In fact, they became heroes of the faith because they chose to be uncomfortable for God. Right? Think about that. Comfortable for Noah would have been not to build the ark, right? Just to relax and spend his days drinking lemonade with his neighbors without a care in the world. That would have been comfortable. Comfortable for Abraham would have been just to stay at home and enjoy the financial security that he had worked to build. Enjoy retirement with his kids and grandkids gathered all around him. Comfortable for him would have been to do everything in his power to protect his son. Comfortable for Moses would have been, first of all, to choose to live as a prince, right? In Pharaoh's, as a son of Pharaoh, but he turned that down. And then comfortable would have been for him to stay being a shepherd, where the sheep don't talk back, where the sheep don't complain. Comfortable for Rahab would have been not to get involved in politics at all and just to ignore the spies and send them on their way. And comfortable for Gideon certainly would have been to keep the tens of thousands of soldiers and to go into battle with as much power and strength as you can possibly have. Comfortable for all of these heroes of the faith would have been to live the way that this world expected them to live, just to fit in with them. And don't take these crazy risks that following God demands. But none of them chose comfortable. They knew that they needed to be strangers in this world if they were going to feel at home with God. they knew that if they really wanted to experience the blessings of heaven, that they needed to give up some of the blessings of this earth. And when you and I share that perspective, when we reach that level of spiritual maturity and live with that spiritual maturity, it will give us the courage to be uncomfortable for God too. Which is exactly the invitation that Peter gives us, right? In 1 Peter chapter 2. He says this, he says, dear friends, he's talking to believers, dear friends, you are outsiders and those who wander in this world. Listen to that again. You are outsiders and those who wander in this world. So I'm asking you not to give in to your sinful desires. They fight against your soul. People who don't believe might say that you're doing wrong, but lead good lives among them. Then they will see your good deeds and they will give glory to God on the day that he comes to judge. Live differently, he says, as outsiders in this world. Live good and godly lives, and that will make you stand out from the crowd. It will make you different from the ways of the world. Some versions use the word aliens, right? You are aliens in this world. Picture the little green alien coming down from outer space, and there's no way that alien can fit in. Right? It looks different. It behaves different. It doesn't know the ways of this world. And Peter says, be an alien. Look differently. Act differently. Be strange in this world. It's what Paul calls us to in Romans 12, right? He says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Another version uses these words. It says, don't live the way this world lives. Let your way of thinking be completely changed. Then you will be able to test what God wants for you. And you will agree that what he wants is right. His plan is good and pleasing and perfect. So don't just go with the flow of this world. Don't just do all the things that this world says you should do. Don't live with this world's values and priorities and definitions of success. No. Live as strangers for Jesus. So let's pause here for a moment and think about that, really practically. Ask yourself this question. Is there anyone in your life who thinks you are strange because you are choosing to follow Jesus? Let me ask you again. Is there anyone in your life who thinks you are strange because you're following Jesus? For you kids here, is there a classmate in school who thinks you're strange because you're befriending the unpopular cool kid at school? Because you're choosing not to be cool as your classmates define cool, but you're choosing to live a good and godly life instead. Or maybe it's that unpopular kid who thinks you're strange because you're his friend or her friend. At work, for you adults, is there someone at work who's only mean to you, but you're kind to them back? And they must think that's so strange. For those of you who have an accountant who does your taxes, does your accountant think that you're strange because of how generous you are? Because of how much money you give away to others? Maybe there's a family member who thinks you're strange because you choose to love them, even when you radically disagree. You don't fight all the time. You love. Maybe there's someone in this world who's hurt you and you've chosen to forgive them. I don't know. Is there anyone? Does your life set you apart from this world in any way? I know some of you had people come to mind, people at school, people at work, people in your family. And you know how difficult this is. Because yes, you are living as a stranger in this world, as a stranger in that relationship, as a stranger in that place, because you're living for Jesus. Good for you. Keep choosing to be faithful. Keep choosing to be a stranger in this world, even when there is a significant cost to it. Choose faithfulness. Okay, so they chose to be strangers, these heroes did. And they did that because they knew that they were foreigners in this world. Right? Verse 16 says that they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. They knew that this world is not their home. Welcome home never sounded completely right to them because they knew that there was a better home yet to come where they would be fully home, the home that God has prepared for them. Right? So they knew that whatever they gave up in this life, whatever comforts and securities they gave up in order to be faithful to God's call, in order to be strange, whatever sacrifices they made were nothing compared to what was to come in the next life, compared to that reward for being faithful. They knew that choosing to follow God, choosing to be obedient to him, is never a loss, even when it might feel like it. Even when this world says it's a loss, even when it's hard and there's a significant price to be paid. That attitude is exactly what motivated the Apostle Paul. Right? He writes this in Philippians chapter 3. He says, I forget what's behind me. And instead, I push hard towards what's ahead of me. I push myself toward the goal to win the prize. God has appointed me to win it. The heavenly prize is Jesus Christ himself. So Paul looks at his past life. Oh, and remember his past life? He was living the way that the world defines success. He had all kinds of glory and success and honor. And God asked him to leave it all behind. And he did. And he said, you know what? All that worldly stuff is garbage. It's garbage compared to the home that I have to come, compared to the way of Jesus. And so he said, I'm going to follow Jesus because I know that my heavenly home is so much better. I know that my heavenly home is where I belong, truly, where welcome home will sound exactly right. So he gave up all the things of this world. Now, don't get me wrong. This doesn't mean we can't enjoy the blessings of life that God gives us. In fact, in other parts of Scripture, he tells us to enjoy the beautiful world and the blessings that he gives. Find joy in life. I think Noah and Abraham and Moses and Rahab and Gideon, they enjoyed life as well. What they had was good. But they did not let good get in the way of better. They were willing to give up good in order to get better. See, they were convinced that what God had was better than the blessings of this world. In the same way, you and I can't let the good blessings of this life get in the way of what's better. We can't make this world our home when a better home is waiting for us. Know that there is more to this life than the joys and priorities and experiences, some of which we shared as we shared our summer experiences together, right? There's more than what this world says is best. There's more than just being popular and successful and rich and comfortable. There's a better home waiting. And that's where we want to fit in. Living with the reality that we are foreigners in this world. That this world is not our home is what motivates faithfulness. It's what will help you and I be heroes of the faith, spiritual heroes for God. We are all called to be foreigners and strangers in this world for Jesus, because we don't really belong. And if you will listen for God's voice, you will hear him invite you to live differently for the cause of Jesus Christ. I'm convinced that he has a specific calling for every single one of us, the youngest one here and the oldest. Age doesn't matter. And it's an invitation to stand out from this world. Maybe it will be a big invitation to you. Maybe he's going to call you to pack up and move. Or when you want to pack up and move, he's going to call you to stay and set roots. Maybe it will be a small thing, a simple act of kindness that will stand out from this world. Maybe he's going to ask you to serve in ministry. Wouldn't it be easier just to stay comfortable and watch TV at home instead? Maybe he's going to ask you to give more generously to the church or to another ministry, when certainly it'd be much easier to keep growing your bank account or to buy whatever it is that you want to buy with that extra money. Maybe he's going to invite you to be a better husband or a better wife, a better parent, a better child. Maybe when you listen for God's voice and direction in your life, he's going to bring one person to mind, one person's face, a classmate or a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, or maybe a former friend. And he's going to say, I want you to love that person in my name. Maybe there's a character trait. Maybe he's going to ask you, I want you to be less angry and more loving, less judgmental, more grace-filled. I don't know what he's going to ask each one of us. I don't know what he's going to invite you to. But no, it will be an invitation. An invitation. Because God will not force you to do these things. He will not force you to live differently from this world. He will invite you to choose uncomfortable for him. Will you? Will I? I don't know. I hope that we will choose uncomfortable when comfortable is still an option. I hope we will choose uncomfortable because we love God and we believe that God has a better place for us to call home, a better place for us to belong. So think about it one more time. Where in your life do you feel like a foreigner and a stranger because you are choosing to follow Jesus? Ask God to speak, to convict you. And when you hear him give his invitation to you, be willing to choose faithful over comfortable.